Oh, why, hello there. It is I, DLE Rye. What's up, boys? It has been a while since we've had a Rye report. There's been KC Cup, new boxes. We actually just had another new box, so the data might be outdated again. We're not sure, but I wanted to just go ahead and make the video just so we can have something to put out. Of course, I was also sick for the past week, but I'm feeling much better now, so we could talk about meta and whatnot without too much interruption. Before we get into it, a couple things to go over. Yes, the meta has been downgraded again. I talked a little bit about this a couple of Rye reports ago, where I basically said if they were to ever touch Harpies, because I really do think Harpies is a good baseline of power of where the meta should be, every deck should be as powerful as Harpies or a little bit stronger. Unfortunately, they have decided to go the other way and go down again in the power level, which means because they only hit a couple decks, the decks that didn't get hit, essentially, that were in the metagame before, Melodious, Water, D-Hero, etc., are just going to come to the forefront, and everything else is still going to be forgotten. And that's pretty much where we find ourselves with the tier list and Rye report for this week. For people who don't know how this works, I pretty much just take the data from last week's power rankings and take the top 8 deck lists that will become next week's power rankings and kind of look and compare between the two power rankings lists to make the Rye report. So it ends up being 90% statistics, 10% my own opinion, all based on math, boys, pretty much results, and not really an opinion piece, if you will. So that is what we're doing here. So, oh, and then also one more thing we got to take care about before we get into it. You can see there's a couple of decks that are missing on here that, well, you might think are missing that might actually be on the power ranking. And we'll be talking about those decks towards the end. I didn't include a rogue category because honestly, every deck feels like rogue. So I didn't want to include too many on the list. We'll just kind of talk about those, what decks I think are doing very well in rogue status towards the end of the video. So, starting off, oh boy, here we go, WaterXCS. Now, I've said before on when I've had a couple people on for the Rye report, WaterXCS is the deck that frustrates the pro player to no end. If you go to any competitive player and ask them what their most hated deck is, they'll probably say WaterXCS, or they're lying to you, because it is by far one of the decks that should not work, but it does, and it wins a lot. And they were second place on power rankings last week, and they're pretty much either going to be first or second this week as well. There's really they've won too much for them not to be tier 1, essentially, right? And I think a lot of people, especially tournament participants, are always thinking about, oh, well, what deck does WaterXCS have a good matchup against? And I think that in a weird way, this might sound weird. That's like a bad way of looking at it. Instead, look at it as what deck does well against WaterXCS, and that is when it's like, oh wait, hold on a second, maybe this is why WaterXCS is good. So instead of just sitting here and saying this is why WaterXCS is bad, they don't deserve to win this, blah blah blah, I'm not gonna, we're gonna talk about why does WaterXCS keep winning, and the answer is simple. It's their small core, man. Listen, if you go and look at a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh decks historically, what makes them good? Having that small core. I mean, that's basically what TCG is. All of TCG is right now, right? Having that small core followed up with a bunch of generic staples. It can just play more generic staples than anyone else because all it needs to have is Diva and Buzzsaw Shark in its deck, and it's going to open one of those eventually, if not top one of them eventually, if you're playing so many copies of search your win condition cards. And that's it. That's really it. Their monsters are just there to have a body on the board. We've seen things like Lightning Vortex, Forbidden Lance, Forbidden Chalice, TTH, Book of Moon, MST. They can flip any of these generic outs for, especially in side deck tournaments, for Floodgate cards. Floodgate cards are extremely, extremely powerful and will always be extremely powerful in a side deck format. Especially now since Harpies You know, they're not gone, but they're definitely not doing as well as they used to be. Um, you know, it's much easier to floodgate an opponent now. So yeah, small core plus able to play any generic. WaterXCS is here, baby. It's the best performing deck of the format, and will probably continue to be the best performing deck of the format, bar the new decks actually end up doing something. They're just here to stay for the most part. So let's go, water. We win. Woo! Tier 2, Melodious. Oh, I should also say I'm going to try and predict where the decks will end up by next Rye Report. And I'm going to go ahead and say the WaterXCS deck probably going to stay at Tier 1 by the time we do a video like this. So we'll see. We'll see if that is the case or if they'll drop due to the power rankings dropping them. Melodious. Oh my god, if WaterXCS is the professional players' most hated deck, and the deck that they most disrespect because they just lose to it and they're tired of losing to it, Melodious is probably where all of their hopium, their copium, ends up going. Again, Melodious fails to get power ranking points, man. They got top 3, which is nice. It's always been that way, top 3, 4, 5 place. But I think the upcoming power ranking point is either going to be 3rd place or lower. They had a really good GG tour, which it was the first GG tour of the first week of the ban list. So a lot of people just played whatever was perceived to be the best deck. I think if we were to go back and do that GG tour again, it would not be Melodious as the most entered deck. I really do believe that would be the case. That's just kind of how quickly the community can flip on a deck because it's the perceived most powerful deck. And even in that GG tour, you know, I think the best performing one ended up being top 4, top 8. They didn't even win the whole thing when there was just so many entries of them. You know, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. But yeah, since that GG tour where they had a crazy number of entries and a crazy number of tops, they haven't really had much going for them. They haven't really had that much entries, haven't really had that much wins, barely any top 8s. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this deck were to even fall down to tier 3 with everyone else for the most part, because right now it is not performing well at all. And the only reason it's here in the tier 2 is because just so many people played them in the GG Tour, and so many of them topped in it with the GG Tour. But if you take that one tournament out, I would easily put this in tier 3. I feel like Melodious has a few unfair interactions that people just take and say this declares the whole meta, even though it really doesn't. You know, I think a lot of people overestimate Bloom Diva. She's not that hard to out for most decks. And I feel a lot of people, the thing that really is bothersome about this deck is score and how the skill lets you add score easily. If it was just Bloom Diva out, that's simple. I think the score and the Bloom Diva at the same time is what decks struggle against. And they're not struggling that much against it, if we're being totally honest. So there you go. I think Melodious, it's fine to call them tier 2 for now. I think anything higher is just ignoring results. And I would not be surprised if by next week they drop down to tier 1. Or sorry, to tier 3. Destiny Hero. They actually won the power rankings last week, but I said during the power rankings with PDS, are they the false kings? And I kind of feel that way. I feel like they are the false kings. They did not have a great week 2 of the ban list. This deck is just, it's, like PDS said, it's an auto duel deck. I really feel like they're just auto dueling half the time. It's not that flexible of what you can actually do. If your opponent isn't like playing crazy back row, the searchable MST isn't that insane. I think D Hero, it's more just setting up the game, right? Like you can't play things like Gaia and stuff because it exists. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to also drop down to a tier 3 situation. I don't think it's going to permanently stay in tier 2. There's not much to say about D Hero, man. Like it's a sack deck that is not sacking as much as it should be, and it doesn't help that WaterXCS is getting more and more play because Abyss Dweller shuts down the clock tower effect. Can just pop it and not even get its effect off from the graveyard. So that just kind of like its worst matchup, just kind of sitting at tier 1 right now in terms of playability and how much it's winning. Just makes life hard for D Hero. Tier 3, oh my god, Magnets and Ritual Beast. Kind of talk about them both at the same time. This is a fantastic metagame for slow decks. Slow decks actually have time to set up in this meta. Ritual Beast has, I don't know if they've won anything this week specifically. Last week it was whatever, they didn't do anything. But this week they've gotten finals quite a few times, and it is a respectable deck. If we're being totally honest, I think there's something to Ritual Beast right now. It is able to combo off. It's able to slowly, again, because of WaterXCS, Winda stall doesn't work as much as you'd want it to work. But things like Petal Fin, Bounce, and stuff like that is very, very powerful in this metagame right now. Again, just a weakened metagame. This has always been a solid deck. We're in a weakened metagame. It just kind of moves up in style. Same thing with Magnets. Magnetic Field's really good. Slow decks that can get that advantage over time is really, really good. They actually won GG Tour, so good for them for the most part. It's just where the meta's slow down to the point where these slow decks that can generate advantage over time are actually good again because it's hard to sack them. And then finally for the tier list, Harpy Ladies. Yes, Harpy Ladies. Hey, that's how Yu-Gi-Oh works, man. You hit one card and a deck might just disappear overnight. Harpy Ladies, the 30 card build continues to be the one that a lot of people flock to, and that's just super inconsistent to win tournaments. It is winning tournaments. It is winning some tournaments, and maybe even is able to go up to a tier 2. Magnets and Ritual Beast are probably going to stay in tier 3. There's a chance the Harpy ends up going back to tier 2, but as of right now, they're just kind of chilling. They're not generating a whole bunch of points. It's just harder and harder and harder to win with them, I feel like. Last time they were barely out of the top 5 power rankings. This time they might actually be in the top 5. But yeah, life's hard as a Harpy player right now. The Swallow Nest nerf basically made it so that you lose to 1 interruption. They're the new Noble Knight, the new Karakuri, whatever you want to call it. Without that Swallow's Nest, they're no better than any of those decks. 1 interruption and they're done. So welcome to the club, Harpy Ladies. We're giving it a tier 3 for now, possibly a tier 2 in the future. Now, I wanted to talk about some rogue decks. Noble Knights, that's the first one I want to talk about, because everyone's always asking me, how's Noble Knight doing? Well, any meta where Melodious goes up in usage, Noble Knight will also go up in usage. So you're probably going to see Noble Knights high up on the power rankings, probably not top 5, but definitely high up on the power rankings very, very soon. It's still super inconsistent, though, so that's why it's considered rogue. Cyber Dragon might actually make top 5 in power ranking, but I think a lot of people were also just interested in using it just to play something new. And while it's not a bad deck, Overflow is definitely really, really good. Again, I just feel like there's too many decks on the limit list for Cyber Dragon, and at the same time, we're still waiting to see if we're going to get anything in the main box or selection box for it. Where it stands now, it's definitely leaning more towards the rogue status. But yeah, it did win a tournament. It had a couple of top 4s. It may end up in the top 5. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. But yeah, I'm definitely leaning more towards rogue for Cyber Dragon. But it's new, so, obviously need more data. And then Abyss Actor, Dino Mist, new box. We've only actually had 1 tournament, or I think 2 tournaments. By the time this video gets released, 2 tournaments of data, and they look okay. I don't want to pass judgment too early on them because people haven't had time to optimize them. That's the whole meme. We're not optimized yet and all that, but it's true. You do need time to optimize decks before you're really able to pass judgment on them. From what I've seen so far, they seem okay. They seem okay. They seem a little stally. Whenever people are winning with Abyss Actor, it's either the turn 2 OTK or I didn't turn 2 OTK, so I'm going to stall you with the sassy rookie and hopefully, grind you down enough with my king contracts and stuff to win. It does seem to kind of, lack grind power against decks like Ritual Beast and stuff like that. Magnets, which is a huge problem, that other decks on the tier list don't really have. But I don't know. Haven't seen enough data to really pass judgment on it. Dino Mist, same thing. Dino Mist, I don't even think has even topped a tournament yet, so it's just not fair to pass judgment on them. Hopefully by the next Riot Report, we can talk about them more in depth. And that's pretty much it for the tier list update. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you agree or disagree, leave a comment down below. I think we are definitely in a chaotic meta, especially with so many new stuff coming out so rapidly. We're also going to be getting new selection box, main box, structure deck for New Year's as well. Well, I don't know about structure deck, but the other stuff for sure. So, you know, by the next time I do this video, this whole tier list may look completely different. And that's exciting. I think this is the most exciting time to play Duel Links, when there's actually things to learn and things to discover for the meta, right? So hope you guys enjoyed. Till next video. Peace out, boys. Till next time.